Welcome. This is Cheating Tales Stories. Tell me where you're watching from. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you trusted completely blindsided you with their betrayal? Sometimes the people closest to us can be the most deceptive. What would you do if your partner not only cheated, but had the nerve to tell you it? Wasn't your concern? Well, buckle up because this storm is about to get intense. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end to see how this all unfolds. My name is David. And this is the story of how my seemingly perfect marriage became the most public scandal our small town had seen in decades. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and how sometimes the universe has its own way of delivering justice. For 12 years, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Melinda and I met in college, both studying business administration. She was brilliant, ambitious, and had this infectious laugh that could light up any room. We graduated together, got married 2 years later, and built what I thought was a solid life together in the small town of Millbrook. I worked as a financial advisor at the local credit union, while Melinda climbed the corporate ladder at Henderson Marketing, a mid-sized firm about 30 minutes from our home. She was dedicated, often working late nights and weekends, but I admired her drive. We had talked about starting a family, but Melinda always said she wanted to establish herself professionally first. I respected that. I thought I understood her priorities. The first crack in our perfect facade appeared on a Thursday evening in March. I had come home early from work, hoping to surprise Melinda with dinner from her favorite Italian restaurant. Her car wasn't in the driveway, which wasn't unusual given her work schedule, so I decided to wait. Around 8 p.m., she walked through the door and something was different. Her hair was slightly messed up, her lipstick was gone, and there was an energy about her that I couldn't quite place. When I asked about her day, she gave me vague answers about client meetings and deadlines. But what really caught my attention was how quickly she went to shower, claiming she felt grimy from a long day at the office. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing more inconsistencies. Melinda would mention being at the office during times when I'd called and been told she was in meetings or had stepped out. She'd come home with stories about difficult clients and demanding projects. But when I asked specific questions, her answers seemed rehearsed, lacking the natural flow of someone recounting their actual day. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning in April. Melinda had gone for what she called an emergency meeting with a major client. She left her personal laptop on the kitchen counter, something she never did. Normally, I would never think to look through her personal things. Trust was the foundation of our marriage. But something that morning felt wrong. Call it intuition, call it desperation, but I opened that laptop. What I found shattered 12 years of my life in an instant. Dozens of emails between Melinda and someone named Marcus Brennan. The earliest ones dated back 8 months. Starting professional, but quickly becoming personal. Then intimate. Then explicit. I sat there reading message after message detailing their affair. Their secret meetings, their plans for future rendezvous. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was reading how they talked about me. In one email, Marcus had written, "What if David finds out?" Melinda's response was burned into my memory. David's too trusting and frankly too boring to ever suspect anything. He thinks I'm working late for my career. Honestly, it's almost too easy. They had been meeting at a hotel about 40 minutes away. Every Tuesday and Thursday when she told me she had late client meetings. They'd spent weekends together. When she claimed to be at corporate retreats or visiting her sister in Chicago. 8 months of lies. 8 months of looking me in the eye every single day and lying. I printed everything. Every email, every message, every photo. Then I closed the laptop and waited. When Melinda came home that afternoon, I was sitting at our kitchen table with the printed evidence spread out in front of me. She walked in, saw the papers, and her face went completely white. "David, I can explain." She started. "Explain what exactly?" I asked, my voice somehow steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "Explain 8 months of lying to my face. Explain how you and Marcus think I'm too boring and trusting to figure out what you've been doing." She sat down across from me, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. I thought maybe we could work through this. Maybe we could salvage our marriage. I was prepared to listen, to try to understand, to see if there was a path forward. Instead, Melinda looked at me with cold eyes and said, "Look, David, what happens in my personal life outside of this marriage is frankly none of your business. We're married. But that doesn't mean you own me. I stared at her, convinced I had misheard. None of my business? Melinda, you're my wife. You're having an affair. How is that not my business? Because, she said, gathering the papers and crumpling them up. What I do with my body and my time when I'm not here is my choice. You're being possessive and controlling, and honestly, it's exactly this kind of behavior that drove me to find companionship elsewhere. The audacity was breathtaking. She was not only unrepentant about the affair, but was somehow making it my fault. According to her logic, my expectation of fidelity in our marriage was possessive and controlling. So you're not sorry, I said. It wasn't a question. I'm sorry you found out this way, she replied. But no, I'm not sorry for finding happiness. Marcus makes me feel alive in ways you never could. That night, Melinda packed a bag and left to stay with her sister, or so she claimed. I later found out she went straight to Marcus's apartment across town. She didn't come back for 3 days, and when she did, it was with a lawyer. She wanted a divorce, but she also wanted half of everything we had built together. The house we had purchased with my inheritance from my grandmother. The savings account I had been contributing to for 12 years while she spent her money on her affair. She wanted alimony despite making nearly as much money as I did, claiming she had sacrificed her career potential for our marriage. But here's where Melinda made her crucial mistake. She assumed that because I had been a trusting, loyal husband, I would also be a pushover in the divorce. She assumed I would quietly accept her demands, sign the papers, and fade away so she could start her new life with Marcus. She was very, very wrong. You see, working as a financial advisor in a small town for over a decade had given me something Melinda hadn't considered. Connections. I knew everyone. The banker who handled our mortgage, the insurance agent who covered our cars and home, the accountant who did our taxes, the real estate agent who sold us our house. And most importantly, I knew their families, their stories, their values. Millbrook was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where family values still meant something, where reputation mattered. It was also the kind of place where secrets didn't stay secret for very long, especially when someone decided they shouldn't. I started with Henderson Marketing. It turns out Marcus Brennan was the company's new regional director, hired about 9 months earlier. He was married with 2 young children. I made a simple phone call to Henderson's corporate office and spoke to their HR department about a concern I had regarding employee conduct. I didn't have to lie or exaggerate. I simply provided them with copies of the emails between Marcus and my wife, along with documentation showing that their affair had been conducted using company resources, including company-paid hotel rooms for their meetings. Corporate policies are very clear about extramarital affairs between employees, especially when one person is in a position of authority over the other. Marcus was terminated within a week, but I was just getting started. I reached out to Marcus's wife, Jennifer, through a mutual friend. I didn't ambush her with the information. Instead, I asked if we could meet for coffee, because I had something important to discuss regarding our spouses. When we met, I simply showed her the same evidence I had shown Melinda. Jennifer was devastated, of course, but she was also grateful to finally have answers. She had suspected something was wrong with Marcus's behavior, but had trusted him when he explained away the late nights and weekend business trips. She thanked me for having the courage to tell her the truth. Within days, the news had spread through Millbrook like wildfire. Small towns have their own communication networks, and this story was too juicy to keep quiet. The financial advisor whose wife was having an affair with her boss, who then lost his job and his marriage when the truth came out. But the story that really made rounds was Melinda's response when I had confronted her. Word got out that she had told her husband of 12 years that her affair was none of his business. People were shocked. In a community where marriage and family were still held in high regard, Melinda's attitude was seen as not just unfaithful, but fundamentally callous. The social consequences for Melinda were swift and severe. Invitations to social events dried up. Former friends began avoiding her. Her own family was embarrassed by her behavior and the public nature of the scandal. Her sister, who I had always gotten along with well, actually called to apologize for Melinda's actions and to tell me she was ashamed of her sister's behavior. But the real consequences were professional. Henderson Marketing, trying to distance themselves from the scandal, decided that Melinda's position was no longer viable. They couldn't fire her outright without risking a lawsuit. but they made it clear that her advancement opportunities were gone and transferred her to a much smaller office in a different city, effectively demoting her. Melinda was furious. She accused me of vindicatively destroying her life, of being petty and cruel. She couldn't understand why. I wouldn't just quietly accept the divorce and let her move on with her new relationship. To her, I was the villain in this story. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Melinda's lawyer had advised her to take a more conciliatory approach given the public nature of the scandal and how it reflected on her character, but she insisted on fighting for everything. She wanted the house, half the savings, alimony, and even half of my retirement account. Her strategy backfired spectacularly. Our small-town divorce judge had known my family for years. He had also been following the local gossip about the case. When Melinda's lawyer argued that she deserved alimony and a significant portion of our assets, the judge asked a simple question: on what grounds? Her lawyer explained that Melinda had sacrificed career advancement for the marriage and deserved compensation. The judge then asked if they wanted to discuss how Melinda's career had actually been impacted by her own choices and behavior. In the end, I kept the house, the majority of our savings, and my full retirement account. Melinda got her car, her personal belongings, and enough money to start over, but nowhere near what she had demanded. The judge's reasoning was that since Melinda had been conducting an affair using marital resources and had shown no remorse for her actions, she had forfeited any claim to the moral high ground in the divorce. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came 6 months after our divorce was finalized. I was at the local grocery store when I ran into Jennifer, Marcus's ex-wife. She looked happier than I had seen her since before I had told her about the affair. "David," she said, "I wanted to thank you again for telling me the truth. It was the hardest thing to hear, but it was also the best thing that could have happened to me." She went on to tell me that she had received a substantial settlement in her divorce from Marcus, including full custody of their children and their family home. Marcus, meanwhile, had been struggling to find work afterward, got out about why he had been fired from Henderson Marketing. "And Melinda?" Jennifer asked. "I heard she and Marcus broke up." It was true. About 3 months after the divorce, Melinda and Marcus had ended their relationship, according to the rumors. Once the excitement of the forbidden affair wore off, and they were faced with the real world consequences of their actions, they realized they didn't actually have much in common. Marcus resented Melinda for the role her laptop and emails had played in his firing. Melinda resented Marcus for not being worth all the trouble their affair had caused her. The woman who had told me that her affair was none of my business was now living alone in a small apartment 3 towns over, working at a job that paid significantly less than her previous position, with a reputation that followed her everywhere in our region. I, on the other hand, was doing better than ever. The support I had received from our community during the divorce had actually helped my business grow. People respected how I had handled the situation, with dignity but also with strength. I had gained new clients who specifically sought me out because they had heard about my character during the crisis. A year after the divorce, I started dating again. I met Catherine, a teacher at the local elementary school, through mutual friends. She was kind, honest, and had a refreshing, straightforward approach to relationships. When I told her about my divorce and the circumstances surrounding it, she simply said, "Well, that says a lot more about her character than yours. We've been together for 8 months now, and I'm happier than I've been in years." Catherine and I have talked about marriage, about starting a family, about building a life based on mutual respect and honesty. The contrast between this relationship and my marriage to Melinda is striking. Looking back, I realized that Melinda's affair wasn't really about Marcus or about finding someone who made her feel more alive. It was about a fundamental lack of respect for our marriage, for me, and for the commitment she had made. Her telling me that her affair was none of my business wasn't just about the infidelity. It was a window into how she really viewed our relationship. She saw our marriage as a convenience rather than a partnership. She felt entitled to the security and benefits of being married, while also feeling free to pursue whatever else she wanted without consequence. In her mind, I existed to provide stability while she explored other options. But life has a way of teaching us that actions have consequences, even when we think we're clever enough to avoid them. Melinda thought she could have her affair, divorce me on her terms, take half of everything I had worked for, and ride off into the sunset with Marcus. She thought that because I had been a faithful, trusting husband, I would also be a victim. Instead, she learned that sometimes making something everyone's business is exactly what a situation calls for. Her affair stopped being a secret between her and Marcus and became a community conversation about values, respect, and consequences. I don't take any joy in Melinda's struggles. I genuinely hope she learns from this experience and becomes a better person. But I also don't regret my decision to expose the truth. She made choices that affected not just our marriage, but Marcus's family as well. Jennifer and her children deserve to know what was happening in their lives. The truth has a way of coming out eventually, and when it does, it's usually better to be the person who chose honesty over deception, dignity over manipulation, and consequences over enabling. Today, I'm rebuilding my life with someone who understands that marriage is a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. Catherine and I talk openly about everything: our hopes, our concerns, our boundaries, our expectations. There are no secrets, no hidden agendas, no areas that are none of each other's business. And that, I've learned, is what a real relationship looks like. So to anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation, remember this: when someone betrays your trust and then tells you it's none of your business, they're really telling you exactly how much they value you and your relationship. Believe them and act accordingly. Sometimes the best thing you can do is make it everyone's business, because the truth protects everyone, including the people who don't want to hear it. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to make you feel like you were wrong for expecting basic respect in a relationship? And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about betrayal, consequences, and finding the strength to rebuild your life.